primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
and today is episode 234 of Podcast 2 for 1, youtube.com/@2for1studios. It's the best place to consume all the content if you didn't know, listeners. And let's be honest, you probably do not. We are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Kill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas, where they have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year.
Kapow.
Daniel, it's 234, and we kind of had a small skip over there of a major Marvel Cinematic Universe movie release. A lot of M's. And
Major in quotes.
Major in quotes.
Yeah.
Well, it's a feature film, and the first one in 8 months, which is a long gap.
From the zeitgeist perspective, major in quotes.
Yeah, well, I'm just talking about physically, yeah. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and so, I saw it, of course, opening weekend. I've watched it again since then. You've watched it now. I've talked to just like maybe one other person about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, it's just been me looking, comments, articles, reviews, those kind of things. So I've been pretty excited just to kind of sit down and talk to you all about it. Of course, on general thoughts here for me. I've always liked Captain America. He's always been my favorite MCU character. Not my favorite character in the comics, but my favorite, Chris Evans as that character was always like, I just fell in love. Like, take your feet off the dash. And Winter Soldier, it's like, you're mine. Like, I'll marry you, Captain America.
Sure,
I don't care, And so seeing that thread throughout the MCU is always a highlight. Him and Tony Stark and how they kind of interweave and come together and fall apart.
Right.
And we talked a lot about passing the mantle over to Sam Wilson of Falcon Winter Soldier. I was totally okay with that decision. I think Sam Wilson is a great candidate, at least as far as the MCU is concerned. I would have been happy with Bucky too. No, whatever. But Sam, at least, he through and through doesn't have a dark past, and he's essentially just a good person trying to do the right thing. And so he's
more your normal Cap archetype. Yeah,
he checked all the boxes, right? We've talked a lot about Falcon Winter Soldier. We had mixed feelings about that in Disney Plus as it was airing. It felt like a movie kind of stretched out over 6 episodes, and various degrees of success with some of its themes, where it was going. But overall, I think we really liked the idea of John Walker and the fight over the shield. I felt like Sam at least had earned the shield by the end of the show. And also we kind of got the buddy cop between Bucky and Sam. Those two felt like they were a team now versus, kind of fighting over their favorite, fighting over the best friend, so to speak, in Civil War and even Winter Soldier or whatever. And so I went back and rewatched Falcon Winter Soldier before this one. I liked it better the second time because I watched it all like literally 5 hours back to back.
I'm sure
I liked it better. I liked it better that way. Of course, there's still issues, but overall, I really liked it. Coming into this, we knew this is a long cold open here. Coming into this, we knew that there was reshoots, lots of changes behind the scenes. Things that were, the writer's strike and all these kind of things. Things being, this was supposed to come out before Deadpool and Wolverine. Now it's coming out after.
Right.
And now this also is the film that leads in the Thunderbolts.
Right.
We've had Jonathan Majors fired and a whole retooling of the multiverse, the end of it with the Russos coming in. We've had a lot of things hit the MCU that's out of their control, and a lot of things that you could argue Bob Chapek putting a mandate on Kevin Feige to be like, make as much content as possible. It's also a thing that happened to the MCU, but we can argue that. I'm not quite sure if we can blame all of it on Bob Chapek. So
we can try
with this movie. I thought after coming out of it that, it wasn't like an egregious to the senses, I enjoyed the characters. The action for me was kind of subpar, honestly. Overall, I mean, there was some things I thought were not bad, and I enjoyed watching. But
I liked the shot at the end with the wing slicing through the bus or whatever it was. That was cool.
Yeah, but there was never like, well, we can get into some of the stuff too in a second, but compared to like Winter Soldier, just wasn't nothing that was like that. That's something that came out almost 8 years ago, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so overall, it wasn't to me like The Acolyte, where it was just
No,
like
yeah.
offending me every two
This should not
seconds.
exist, right?
Yeah, it wasn't like that, but you could feel you could feel the film flexing in terms of reshoots and like in
Yes.
terms of like almost breaking apart and coming back together.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, I think my biggest thing was, although I do enjoy, I mean, I watched it the second time, I liked it better the second time. My expectations were, had already
Sure.
settled, everything else. I don't think it felt like a repeat of some of the themes. Not felt, it's a repeat of Falcon Winter Soldier
Hmm.
stuff. And at the end of the day, I didn't think Sam's arc was nearly strong enough. It feels like there's a pattern, like Doctor Strange 2 and the Marvels with Brie Larson, and and even Shang-Chi doesn't have a huge, they just don't have these strong arcs I felt like we were getting with like, I don't know. I just feel like it's different now. I feel like Ross has a bigger arc than he does, and I think it's a problem. But anyway, that's my general thoughts. Let's get into what your general thoughts of the movie are. I'm dying to know what you think about this movie.
Yeah, I think this is just overall just a pretty flawed movie. On most of the levels. Like there's very little that this movie did that I'm like, oh, it nailed that part of it at least. You know what I mean? There's moments of coolness. I mean, I'll take Harrison Ford pretty much anytime I can get him.
Yeah,
Harrison Ford as
yeah,
Hulk. For some reason, I'm like, that's the best looking Hulk we've ever had. Maybe it's just because it's Harrison Ford's face on there. But whatever it is, I like that Hulk better.
I liked it.
But
I liked it.
I liked the idea of the plot much better than I liked the execution of the plot. Like
I
the
agree.
concept of what the leader was doing. They're definitely stealing it's straight up from like there's a Far Cry game that does this exact kind of thing. When a song plays, it turns people into
Yeah, it's Manchurian Candidate, right? Yeah.
yeah. So like there are parts of it that it's not like any of it felt incredibly original necessarily, but I liked the layers of Ross knew it wasn't the Forgotten Cap that did this, and he had been working like it. I liked that we kind of got more and more details as we dug in and realized, oh, Ross wasn't the villain of this movie, but he was manipulated into becoming like the final battle. You know what I'm saying? And I think I like that. That to me is an interesting way to do it. I like that. But the execution of it was just subpar. And I think from the very beginning of this movie, you could just feel the seams. You could just see it being stitched together. When the first 5 minutes of a movie, you get a 5 years later on-screen text, and you get a news reporter giving you the exposition of what happened in those 5 years right after that 5 year title.
Yeah.
And then you get the next scene where the army buddies like talking are giving you more exposition while you're watching Cat fight. Like it's just messy as fuck. And to me, it's just like when you're struggling to figure out how to tell a story well, you fall back on cliche. That's just normal. And to a degree, it's because it worked. It worked in the past. These things work. We've done exposition through news broadcasts before, but it just all feels so clunky, and it all just feels so just like
It's also
you can
it's
just see the struggles behind the scenes, where you're just like, man, this had it rough.
yeah.
This had it
It's
rough.
also funny because even though there was a 1 year gap in the original layout of the Daredevil
What was it,
Born
5
Again
months
show,
this time? I think. Yeah, something like
in the movie maybe yeah, it was 6 months, but
that.
in
Okay.
Born Again it was like a year. But even then, that first episode was like
Yeah,
that's the reshoot essentially, and like
yeah,
they're doing exposition and like leading up to things, and there's more news broadcasts telling you things like they really turn on TVs. There's new
yeah.
broadcast, so it's funny that they both got that similarity in a way.
They
To
do. I
them.
think. I think Daredevil makes it feel more natural to the world, even because
Well,
it's focusing on media as a
Well,
part of like what
it's a TV show also, and they can do an hour of here's what the character's been doing
for
leading up
sure.
to, that's totally
But I
different.
hear you there. You can still see the seams in that. But I think what Daredevil has going for it is that the things that are working perfect.
No.
You know what I
I
mean?
agree. I agree. I'm
Um,
just saying like that's like they, in close proximity, and they're both movies with reshoots, and
yeah.
it's like the same company. So anyway,
Yeah, no. Going
yeah,
through massive rewrites in the middle of production, both movies or both projects. Yeah, I mean, And it's not like I mean, this is Marvel. We remind me all the time about how they didn't know the ending of Iron Man until they shot it or whatever. They didn't, I'm sorry,
Bridges.
Jeff Bridges didn't know he was the villain until later in the movie. I think that's the funniest part. I think that's my favorite factoid about that.
Yeah.
Which seems like, as a creative, as a writer, as a storyteller, just seems asinine to go into it like that. But I'm sure they were just doing what they had to do to get it done. All that to say is, like, I think we've known for a while, but that method has been catching up on Marvel. You can't, to some degree, like, you can't plan on figuring it out as you go every time and expect the quality to be fantastic every time.
Particularly when you have 3 or 4 times as many projects happening at once, and you can't devote a lot of
Kevin Feige
time
can't
and resources.
be on every set. He can't be, making sure every little edit is perfect.
Yeah,
and I just want to. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't want to crap on any writers or anything like that.
No.
But it's also like, but when you are making more projects, I'm not sure, there's 1,000 good writers or 50 amazing writers. There's probably like 2 or 3 or 4. And then, you start kind of getting lower and lower down the totem pole when you have more projects out there. And so it's just harder to manage and harder to, to hold hands, so to speak. A lot of first-time directors, and this guy, Julius Ona, seems like a really nice guy, but he directed the Cloverfield Paradox on Netflix.
I didn't even watch it. I heard it was bad.
No one did. It was critically panned. And it was like
such a missed opportunity because 1310 Cloverfield Lane or whatever it was fantastic.
That was great.
It was better than the original. And then anyway.
I agree. But my point is, like, this is a guy that had no proven track record, and maybe personality and pitch can really get you far, but it's like, why did you hire him? Like, there was nothing.
I have a feeling I know why.
Okay.
He's cheap.
Maybe.
He's cheap. And I do think, like, listen, Marvel is the epitome of the studio system right now in Hollywood, right? The Marvel machine is the studio system. And we learned in film school about the history of directors having power or more or less power within those systems. Before we had the all-star new Hollywood of the 70s and 80s, directors didn't get as much free leeway. You know what I mean? Until we had these Spielbergs and Lucas.
John Watts was cheap. He made Cop Car. Good movie. He was cheap. Made Spider-Man. James Gunn, not as cheap. He'd written some screenplays, directed a few features, but he had no bangers. But it also feels like those people were chosen for, like, artistic reasons, and maybe this guy was, but, like, I mean, like, it does feel like they were like, we have to get this movie out. We've signed contracts. Here, actors are, we've guaranteed so much money already in these contracts. We just have to make this movie, or else it's more of a loss. Let's just get someone in here that can do the job and piece these things together. Because, I mean, I think, I have to believe, and I think we knew, I mean, the amount of reshoots and rewrites they knew they were struggling while they were struggling. You know what I mean? They were aware that things were not going great. And so, to me, it just feels like kind of let's just get it over the line, and to me, like, it is like, yeah, you're right. He hasn't done anything. And is that the last thing he directed was Cloverfield Paradox? Surely not. As far as I know, it's the first
like 4 or 5 years ago
feature, or longer. Right? Yeah, I think
it's
like 7,
like
8 years ago.
Like, to me, it's like, now maybe he had a connection and maybe they saw a short film, but, like, I guess to me, it's like, yeah, James Gunn was cheap, but there was an intentionality behind that choice. They're like, this guy does this wacky trauma shit that would fit here.
Part of my point, where why are they choosing these people? I can't imagine it's just money, because John Watts had to be cheap, and I think now we've seen, at least with Spider-Man, he's a good director, but there's a great argument that, again, most of these people like John Watts who've gone, even the Russo brothers, who I think were amazing on Community, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. When they have not in Marvel, their stuff's not hitting. Wolves for John Watts, everything for Electric State comes out right this Friday. It's getting panned. It's $300 million Netflix movie. And so it is feel like Marvel holds a lot of hands, or at least Kevin does. Production stuff aside, I think I don't really care too much about all that. I care more about, let's talk about the movie and what's not working. Yeah. And the plot. I do want to, we can talk about the reshoots all day long.
Sure. I do want to address, you ask, like, why were they able to do it then versus now? To me, what I've started realizing over recently is that the creative process is there's so many un unaccountable for factors that go into making something creatively amazing. There's so many things. You had to be in the right season. You had to be in the right mood. This thing had to happen first. This person had to be unavailable. So this guy had to come in and he was better. You know what I mean? And like, I was watching a YouTube video the other day. It was about Damascus steel. I don't know if you know what that is, but this was the steel made back in ancient times that was some of the most flexible and sturdy steel.
Yep.
We only in 2006 figured out how they were doing it. We finally figured out the ingredients they were using to do it. And yet we have been unable to replicate the process. And we don't know why. Is it the soil was different back then and we can't account for that. We don't know. Is it the process that they, it's just this kind of thing of like, we have all this technology, we have all this knowledge, all this research, all this history, and yet we can't do something better than people did thousands of years ago on accident. They did not figure out Damascus steel on purpose. And so like there is just this
There's
level
also
of like
a great argument with that there could be other ancient civilizations that had greater technology that
absolutely.
that we're unaware of,
Well, all that I'm saying, like how that applies to creatively, it's like, well, how was Marvel able to make some smarter decisions back then? Maybe part of it was Kevin's butt was more on the line if Guardians of the Galaxy flopped. If Guardians of the Galaxy flops,
sure,
that's a huge this movie didn't do great, but it's not going to change any of the plans for future Marvel, at least not drastically. Maybe there's an element of that. Maybe there was more intentionality behind it because he had to. Because if it didn't make it, he was done. This universe was done. I don't know. It's hard to say, but I think you're right. This is still a different Marvel. And hey, I'm so hoping that Fantastic Four and the other one.
I think it and Thunderbolts are going to be
Thunderbolts.
Like,
yes,
I was never confident in Cap 4. I am confident in these two.
Yeah, but anyway, I do want to get back to Cap 4. I think, you're right. Sam has no arc.
Yeah, let's get to the root of that, and we can kind of jump around. But I think the big thing for me is, it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, the arc is, or Sam is feeling like or coming to the terms that he is worthy of the mantle of Captain America. But that's the same arc we got in Falcon Winter Soldier, which I get it. This is now we've known for a while. It's the problem that Marvel's had to deal with is that who watched Falcon Winter Soldier, who didn't, and if we don't do a similar but maybe different story with the same arc in a feature version of that, then people won't know what's going on. And
it makes me think that I wonder, because it is so repetitive and it's so weak. Even in it's a worse version of what we already got, in my opinion. I think that arc was done better in the show. That makes me wonder, is that somewhat a victim of the rewrites? If this is the story, we had the footage and time to tell versus what we originally did. Because it is. You'd think they wouldn't, even if we don't know if people saw this. That shouldn't matter. Just tell a good story with a character. That should be your goal. If you tell a good story about Sam Wilson, Captain America, no one will give a shit about whether they believe he's accepted the mantle. It just feels like you fell on your own sword way earlier than you should have, and there should have been multiple people telling you this is a bad idea. So that makes me wonder, surely that wasn't the intention, just to rehash. And I agree. Harrison Ford's character is so much more interesting than Sam, and that's not a slight to the actor at all. I think just he wasn't given as much to work with. You know what I mean?
I think Anthony Mackie was fantastic in it.
He was great. But what I'm saying, he was great, but he didn't have much to do emotionally. He didn't have really anything to do in a way that made me feel like I got closer to Sam Wilson in this movie or something like that.
Yeah. I feel like Captain America has traditionally been a harder character like Superman to kind of write in terms of
he's a goody two shoes.
Yeah, and this is Steve Rogers I'm really talking about here, right? Sure. Is where he's someone who is he doesn't really change in his values. It's more about
Yeah.
how does he react to the world changing around him, and then
Yeah.
how's he steadfast, or it seems like he's changing his values in Civil War when he's going against the government, but it's really that the government is now even Winter Soldier, but the government is like
Yeah.
trying to force him to do something. It's like that's not freedom. That's not
Yeah.
even though they are
And then
breaking
it
the law.
always turns out
Um,
Cap's right. Or well, yeah.
and Cap's yeah, and
But
Cap's
yeah.
typically always right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so Sam Wilson's different, where Sam is not. He is a moral character, but I think he is allowed to make mistakes where Steve really wasn't, in my
Mm,
opinion. And so I think there was, I mean, there had to be a bigger opportunity here of like, how do you push Sam to the absolute brink? And I don't, and
mm,
then also in whatever challenge you give him, how does that make us, like you're talking
mm.
about, get closer to him emotionally
Yeah.
or see a different side to Sam Wilson? Like
Yeah.
I mean, again,
And
you don't want to see Steve accidentally kill someone he's not supposed
yeah.
to. I'm not even saying it was
Right.
Sam, or do something out of anger, but maybe something like that, what is a suggestion,
Gosh.
could have given us something more meatier.
There's such
It's
a better version of this movie where it's about Sam being too loose with the Captain America branding. Like where
there's a
he is the
possibility.
more chill guy, and I think there's something that's nice, and like you want to hang out with Sam more than you do Steve Rogers. You want to go to beers with Sam. Probably you'll have more fun with Sam at beers than you will Steve Rogers.
Steve won't drink and he'll be your DD and tell you to
Yeah,
stop
yeah,
drinking
he'd be like,
early.
"Hey, that's
Yeah,
your third one. Maybe slow down." You're just gonna be like, "Fuck you, man."
right.
And Sam's gonna be like, "Mother round, let's go." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like, there's a perfect opportunity to be like, what if Sam is going too far? What if he's being too loose? What if he's being a little too violent? And part of that is because he doesn't have the serum. And so there's this part of him that still does feel inadequate. And his response in that is to go overboard, to go too much, to try to be too much of the hero, too much in the spotlight. Like, you know what I mean? Whatever that is. And then through the events of the movie, he's humbled and he's pulled back and he remembers what Captain America means and what it actually is. And then he talks Ross down instead of beating him up. Like you can still have that ending. You can still have
that's a
that
version
of
again.
it. But like,
Even I get it, you're spitballing, but even looking at John
yeah,
Walker, who's someone who was loose with the mantle, look what happened to him. It's a similar, you know what I'm saying? Like I get,
sure, yeah,
granted,
you're right. No, that is a bit of a
we're
reaction.
we're 30 seconds into our pitch, right?
Right.
But I know that you and me could sit here and think of something to push him to the edge and to challenge what it means to be
Yeah,
Captain America, or at least what it
yeah.
means, you know what I'm saying? And
And
I
I
feel
even think it's
like it
like
didn't do
you just
that.
make it about Sam himself as much as it is about Cap. You know, make it about Sam
Yeah.
Wilson, the guy.
Well,
That's
that's
the
the thing
thing
is
is
that
like,
they're not interchangeable. Steve Rogers is
yeah,
Captain America and vice versa. He's not
yes.
never not he's never not Captain America. You know what I'm
It's
saying?
just his personality. Yeah.
And you could do the same thing with Sam. and I, for me, a big thing too is like the leader's plot, he just doesn't it's either regurgitating to to two characters in the scenes like what's happening, so in case you're not catching it, but his plot
Every
isn't
time he shows
that.
up, I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm doing and how I'm
Yeah,
doing it.
but it's
Which
even
it,
like them talking to Giancarlo Esposito, Sidewinder is what the
oh
name of the
yeah,
movie is.
yeah.
It's like, granted, it's fun seeing him in the movie, and like he's, even with bad dialogue or whatever, he's fun to watch. So
He's
good
electric.
casting,
Yeah,
to kind
yeah,
of to fix, it's like Harrison Ford. It's like, well, at least for watching this guy we like to watch.
yeah.
And but it's like the movie is just what he's doing is not super intelligent. Like it's not tricking us,
It's not
and part.
interesting. Yeah, his significance to the plot isn't interesting at all.
And I think part of the reason I know why is that we know that Ford turns into Red Hulk, right? And
Yeah.
we also know that Marvel has to market that to get seats, tickets and seats.
Right. Yeah.
And so like I think that plot works better if you don't know, but of course that's the thing we're waiting for the most. So it's like we're
Yeah.
already way ahead of the characters. And I think that these writers
Yeah.
and Kevin Feige, they have to either they need to lie to us with the trailers and like, Infinity War Endgame, they can like not show anything and we'll make it the highest gross movie of all time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they can get away with it there. But I think they have to also think about this in a meta sense of like, how do we not tip our hand to make the plot stronger when people are watching it, And so
Yeah. I did like that they held off as long as they did. I appreciated that. I like that they didn't rush it. But I agree.
do, but when you see the pills, and yes, now we have to have a scene our guy figure out what the pills are, and then you see Ford doing his thing, and you know that like the leader's doing something to make him turn into Red Hulk.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
I mean, like we know, like I knew
Yeah.
it's like I knew the whole plot without watching anything
Yeah.
beforehand.
No, I
you know?
agree. I agree. I
Yeah.
think it could have used
And
an
it's
extra
hard.
layer, an extra reveal, something else to make it more interesting. And I think,
just more
but I think here's the thing:
Intelligent. It's not an intelligent plot. Like he's
Here's
not
the-
doing anything intelligent.
but here's the thing: if the characters were strong, I don't think we care. If Sam's journey was strong and we fell even more in love with Sam Cap after this because we just got to know him better and he just had this great, like he had like a Winter Soldier level like character journey. It just was awesome. This stuff wouldn't, I don't think, even register as much, right? Like just because it's because we're not being pulled through the story. And I felt it too. I'm not being pulled through the story by any character's journey. I'm being pulled by plot. That's what's pulling me through the story. And some of it's interesting. And some of it I think is cool, or like, oh, I didn't think that would happen. Like it's not all bad, but
No.
it's clunky and it doesn't flow well. And you're right. You see all these scenes of these moments where like that felt like ad lib and that didn't feel great with the audio. Like there's just like almost every moment had something where it just felt like that could have been better. Or that line or that delivery or that, it's that unfortunately the movie's kind of constantly reminding you of its flaws and doesn't allow you to get lost in like the things that it's doing well.
Yeah.
And
I
that's,
think also, I've had this issue for a while on various superhero movies where, I want to see how the world reacts to what the superheroes
Sure.
are doing, right?
Yeah.
And you can get away with that more so like in a sequel, like Winter Soldier,
Sure.
and Civil War, because now we know how the world feels about a character, right? Steve Rogers,
Yes.
he can have a 2-day timeline thriller about dealing with his best friend, whatever, and the government trying to kill him because we've already seen in First Avenger. He goes through the roadshow of like being a propaganda machine. He's in movies. He saves people. People look up to him. Like we see how the world thinks about him. And I think, the only thing we really got in the Falcon Winter Soldier was kind of really how the Flag Smashers, how she saw him, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. And we got more of how people were kind of viewing John Walker. But it would have been great in this movie to see how is the world. We saw a few news things, but like save a kid, save save something tangible that like gets the people. Like, the Avengers actually did this great. It's something that Justice League really faltered on. Was that Avengers, when they saved New York, first of all, when Steve shows up, the first time the police see him, like, who is this guy? He whips some Chitauri ass, and they're like, now they're like, hey,
he's
go down
yelling
the fourth
it's such a
block.
great moment.
That's a small 30-second thing, but it tells you right there, people see who this guy is, what he's doing, and now they respect him. And the movie ties it all together with the montage of like people doing face paint and tattoos and graffiti, and like the world now knows who the Avengers are.
Yeah.
Sam Wilson needed something like this in that movie.
Don't you remember the bartender gave him a
reinforce.
free beer?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. I'm wrong.
No.
Tangent's over.
I'm just showing that to be like, you're right. It did nothing. It really dropped the ball.
Because you know what would it's nice Bucky telling him it's a night. Of course, Bucky shows up. You want to see that.
That was a great scene.
You want to see that. It feels good, tugging on you a little bit. But you want to see. You want Sam to come to that conclusion because of how he's seeing how he's affecting the people, and the closest thing we got was that, Joaquin Torres scene at the very end where he's like, I wanted to be you when I was a kid, that's the closest, but it's literally the last 30 seconds of the movie.
And it's a character we already know. He already is it's his sidekick. So it's not, it just feels a little, I agree. I think it just wanting to, and I think that's what, those early Marvel movies did. And part of the reason they felt so grounded was because we got more stuff like that. We got normal people reacting to superheroes. You know what I mean? And that always felt nice. And so, it's that struggle of like, in theory, this world is a lot different than that one. Everyone's more used to them. I mean, that's literally one of President Ross's like points is like everyone is aware of all these things now. Nothing's a surprise, and so maybe it's harder to find natural ways to still do that. But I agree. I think it would have been
when
cool.
you fight over resources in the ocean, when you have to basically only have military people around and there's no
Sure.
civilians around. Well, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You see that, which here's another point of mine. This movie is the closest we've gotten to a sequel to The Incredible Hulk and Eternals, right? And just
I guess
talking about
Eternal. I
Eternals
mean,
for a second, it's kind of like, it also feels like the movie or they're afraid to piss off Russia and China. Why is Japan,
hmm,
our ally in real life, the only company that we're fighting resource? Like, I'm pretty sure Japan and or China and Russia would be like the ones we would actually be in conflict with here in this situation, and or
yeah.
what I'm saying? It starts feeling
Fine.
like,
Use North Korea. No one likes them.
yeah,
No
yeah,
one
fine,
likes
that's
them.
fine.
Perfect. It's they don't. No one even defends them, so it's
Yeah.
fine.
But let's do Japan, our ally. It just makes it less interesting to me. It's like even if it's Japan's the main aggressor, why do we
Yeah.
not even
Yeah.
mention China and Russia? It just feels like weird. It feels weird to me.
I mean, there's a version of it where it's like I get that part of the reason it makes the moment even more audacious is because they're our ally, but I don't think they didn't make
They
the
didn't
most of
lean.
that idea.
No,
Right, like they
no, they
didn't, and
didn't.
like I mean, I agree. Like the conversations between Ross and like the Japanese Prime Minister, especially, just felt just
Yeah.
just like comic book character in a bad way. You
Yeah.
know what I
Here's
mean?
your
Like
CIA
threatening,
document
just
about, yeah,
yeah, yeah, I agree. Now, was it cool that we got adamantium introduced? Fuck yeah, that was cool.
It's cool, but
I
also
like
like
that we're
I was
sneaking
kind
that
of
in
like,
here. I like that we're starting to get that worked in early in a way that
I
doesn't actually
do.
matter, but will be a callback.
But also, like, how much adamantium is there? Or, I'm saying, like, is this like the impression
Yeah,
for me was that it was literally in the old Wolverine movies are like, this is the rarest metal on Earth. This is all of it, and we're putting it all in
right.
Wolverine. And
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
how many
yeah.
people? It makes it a little less special if like
Sure,
even 10% of Tiamat is,
sure.
adamantium or 5%. That's a lot.
That's a lot
Um,
of adamantium.
But
Yeah,
even then,
we'll
we still
see
don't
how
get
that
a
all plays out.
reaction. We don't get a reaction to how the world is feeling about this. We just get
No,
how the government's reacting to resources, which again is the
yeah.
most we've gotten, but it still feels weird. It feels awkward.
Yeah, it is. It just feels clunky still.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's such to me like I think Thunderbolts will have an opportunity to be something fresh just because of what it is. But like Fantastic Four, a period piece, going to a different what seems like just a different reality is they're coming from a different reality. Um, it's just going to be a nice change of pace compared
Yeah,
to like
I agree.
it just feels so much like I want to go hang out in that version of the Marvel universe for a while like cuz this one feels a little too messy and like I don't really know what's going on. I'm having trouble with it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean like and even just to say like, of course we can acknowledge that after credit scene which was just like and I just want to say like the guy, the leader, he was he
I liked Tim Blake Nelson, and
I liked Tim Blake Neslin. I don't think this was a great moment. This was not his best performance, or like I wasn't wowed by it. I thought the CGI for him looked not great a lot. Like it was just like stuff like that that was just like
I
like
think it
I
was all
wish.
prosthetics, really. I mean, I don't think there was any
Well, okay,
CGI.
the whatever they did to add in like colors on his head or whatever they were doing for like
They made his eyes glow or
accents or whatever.
whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Anyway, all I'm saying is
Well, it
like
looks weird whenever it's like he's doing David Fincher,
yeah,
uh, John Doe 7, giving himself up, and
yeah,
it's like in broad daylight. It's like he looks the best when he's in shadow and he's menacing.
yeah.
I don't hate it. I want to talk about this and one other thing real quick. But as far as the leader, I actually liked him visually. I thought it made his character more tragic, and it kind of gave him a motivation as to why he wants to get
I
revenge on
liked
Ross.
that. I just think I felt underwhelmed, I guess, by the performance a
No.
bit.
Well, the big thing for me is just that if he's someone who can see every calculation, he's basically like a supercomputer, right?
Right. Yeah.
He should be able to be like Skynet or something where he
Right.
has thought about 7 different things and all the things,
Right.
and if this happens, I can do that. Those are hard characters to defeat, but when they've done it correctly, it's always super fun. And how can you beat them,
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think you did look at every scenario because your
Right.
plot
Yeah.
was thwarted pretty easily multiple times.
Yeah.
And which
Yeah.
made him not, I think it'd been better if he and yes, he actually succeeds, right? In a way, Ross hulks out,
Yeah.
and
Ross
I mean,
loses his stature. He's humiliated. He goes to prison,
yeah,
not a president anymore. So
and
yeah,
he wins. He wins in that way.
yeah,
But I think there was a way to win more. You know, I mean,
yeah.
originally, Ross dies in the end. That was a reshoot thing. He wasn't around. He actually
Hmm.
died at the end.
I
But
wonder
which
why they did that.
and there's a
Maybe
lot of
because they want
reshoots.
to use him for the. They just want to have a Harrison available for Civil War or something.
Maybe I don't
Or
know why. I mean, obviously they give him the final thing too
Wars.
with Betty, you know, in the raft
Yeah,
prison.
yeah.
Last thing I want to talk about before we can maybe hop on Daredevil
That
real
was weird
quick
too. Gosh.
is you know, Isaiah Bradley. So which
Mm,
I think he's one of the best parts of the movie. Like that
yeah,
guy, he was one of the best parts in the show.
yeah,
Bringing him back is one of the best parts of the movie.
yeah.
I thought originally in the original script, he's like I think in the opening with Cap and Joaquin, like he's with them fighting,
Like, like.
and
Oh, okay.
that's why they're all three being honored there. You
Okay.
know,
You're here
Instead of
because you weren't guilty, but we thought you were. So,
well,
like
I mean,
that's yeah,
no,
yeah.
we're
No,
honoring you at the White House because you helped save whatever.
well, he
Versus,
didn't. So that's what I'm saying. It's almost like you're here because we're sorry. Like it almost
well,
feels like
now it's we're here because Sam asked you to be here.
sure. Yeah.
And that's part of the leader's plan. So the leader's plan makes more sense when he's at the fight in the beginning and they're all being
Yeah.
honored. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because he knows that
Yeah.
Isaiah's going to be there and then to be honored. It's like a pretty big thing of like, I hope Sam Wilson invites him to the White House,
Right. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
No. Yeah.
anyway,
No.
yeah,
And I'll say too. Like I think I agree. I just want to say he was the most interesting character. Like he was the most I was emotionally invested into.
yeah,
Like when he is like, first of all, I just thought it was just like that was the moment the movie kind of gripped me for the first time was when he, you know, is the assassin or they did all that stuff. I was like, man, this is a great turn of like we just got reminded of why he hates the government and now he's being, you know, framed. That's perfect. That's a great way to just introduce tons of personal conflict and plot conflict. But and I agree, like his moments of like like the desperation of not going back, right, or not going to like solitude. Those
Don't
are the
touch my
most
suit.
emotionally like resonant moments of the movie. Period.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? And
No,
so
I'm glad they don't have him in the opening fighting because I don't think it makes sense from where
no,
we saw it.
no,
But maybe a good idea would have been, hey, he needs Isaiah to help him. You know, like it's much like
break
in
him
Winter
out.
Soldier where Steve Rogers
Yeah,
has to get Sam Wilson's help. It's like, well, he has to get maybe he doesn't
yeah,
go to prison. He needs Isaiah to suit up one more time to help him, and he
yeah.
inspires Isaiah. Like it's like Isaiah sees him as Captain
Mm,
America now.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? And we got a little
yeah,
bit of that again in
a little bit. But
Falcon
he
Winter
didn't. But he
Soldier.
didn't truly take it up the mantle again. Like it would be cool to like.
Well, I'm saying
Yeah.
at least he's kind of like, hey, you know, it seems like he might not agree with it, but he respects Sam's decision and sees that maybe this
Right.
guy could be Captain America. But maybe
Yeah.
it would have been even stronger in the movie where it's like, hey, you know, we get that scene from the Joaquin says, you know, you
Mm-hmm.
inspire us from
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah and
Mm-hmm.
not, you know what I'm saying? Maybe there's
Yeah,
just
and
something, there's
there's
just
also this
better.
better version of this movie where it's like I mean like again yes we are dipping our toe into a little bit of Captain America the show. It's in some ways it feels like they did too much plot in that show. They should have saved something because there's also the version of it again where it's like you know it's like Sam like why would I even want to be the captain of this America? You know what I mean? Like there's a plot you could go down there where that would absolutely tie and dye. Like wouldn't it be so much cooler if like in the beginning you know Sam is you know I'm going to be America's captain and Isaiah's like you know obviously not cool with that. The crux of the movie forces Sam to question that, and then at the end of the movie, Sam, you know, resolves that no, I'm going to still be Captain America, and then that inspires Isaiah to even let go of some of his like pick that back up to do. Like there's such a better version there, even with Isaiah and Sam, that's already working with what Isaiah's going through, that just would match it better with the rest of the movie and
Yeah.
even just playing I mean like Ross is this like gun-toting like there's just so many versions of this that like that could have worked and again that was touched on in Captain America Winter or
Well, to be fair, we did get Falcon Winter Soldier, so we did
but
get
what I'm
those story beats.
we did but like
we
but
just
like
repeated them in the movie. So this should have been a sequel and not just basically
my,
like a weaker rehash.
No,
you
I
know?
agree. But I almost wonder if like, and I think that was one of the criticisms of the show is that the plot felt all over the place. Sometimes for that
And we
show,
said it. We said
and
it should have been a 2 hour movie. How great would it have been to see the main plot threads that in
yeah,
2 hours with John
and
Walker and
it
Bucky fighting over the shield, and that would have been amazing.
honestly, it feels like that's all that show should have been about. It should have just been about John Walker, the Shield,
A
and
2 hour
Sam.
movie.
This
Yeah.
movie should have been about Isaiah. What does it even mean to be
Dude,
Cap?
you're
Do
actually
you
you're
even
actually
want it?
right. Yeah,
I
you're
know,
actually
I know.
right.
It's like
Yeah.
it feels like they
actually the
did
move.
both in that show, and they wasted both a little bit. Like
Yeah,
neither
you're right.
one was as good as it could have been if they just stuck with one thing. And that show does feel like there's two halves. There's the first half with
And
John
the
Walker, and the second half
sequel,
with
him finding out Isaiah, like a feature film, him finding out
Yes.
Isaiah has been
like that's
dude.
the reveal of the movie. Like that's one of the core. Like yeah, that's it. That's it right there. Gosh, it would work so well with everything else that they're already doing with the government and
And
everything.
again, they did it, but we're just now seeing
But we got a
like,
truncated, like less cool
We got-
version of it. in
we
some
got two
ways.
less cool versions of something that could have been cool.
Yes. It just feels like you shot yourselves in the foot a little bit with that show.
Yeah.
That of like, where do we even go now?
Again, they should have been braver and had a stronger arc for him. It would have helped a lot. Again, what's funny is again, it sounds like I'm shitting on the whole thing. I enjoy it. Like I liked it better the second time.
Sure.
I will rewatch. Like it feels shorter to me than it is, just because it does
agree.
kind of move quickly. Like it's like
I mean, it's
whoa,
only
we're
like an
already
hour
here.
40. It's not
No,
that much
it's 2
over
hours.
90. But like,
No,
there's a
it-
lot of credits though in this one.
Maybe so
Still.
it's hour and 50 with credits, without credits, or whatever, hour and 45 without credits. But it's still it moves. It does move.
It does. It doesn't
And
stall.
yeah. So anyway, we got a little bit of time here.
Yeah.
Daredevil, episode 3.
Hell yeah, maybe. I'll say that there was a couple moments in this episode where I felt like the execution wasn't quite as strong as maybe some of the moments in the first two. Maybe it was dialogue. I don't remember specifically. Maybe some delivery or a couple performances. There was just something I feel like early in the episode where I was like, okay, this one doesn't feel quite as in the groove as those first two did for me, but I'm still in it. But then by the end of it, I think, I loved it. I think, getting an amazing courtroom scene, which, I just love courtroom scenes. Just, give me lawyers arguing against each other. I'll take it. I grew up watching Matlock. I love it. And so like just getting Daredevil, getting to be a lawyer. I love that the show is leaning so hard into this. I love that this episode was about a court case. Basically, that's it. And I loved that. I loved how they're building Matt's journey of returning to Daredevil. Like you can see this. I think there was a part of me that worried that after the end of episode 2, where he beats up the cops, it's like, oh, he's back now. He's just going to be in the suit next episode because this was the moment. And they're not doing that. They're taking their time. They're making it more of a slow build. They're factoring in even more like, Matt, in that scene. Yeah, actually, I'll get to that in a minute. I want you to go. What do you think?
Well, I was going to say it's a few interesting things there. This originally was episode 2.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so this was the first episode that we've seen was kind of like basically almost all part of the reshoots. Foggy did originally die in that, but it wasn't, I don't think, by Bullseye.
Foggy and
also
Karen weren't at all in it, right?
I don't know.
the
I've
first
heard now
version?
that Foggy did die, but it wasn't by Bullseye. It was just by being shot, and also it was it wasn't Daredevil wasn't even in it. So it's like a big thing, which I'm actually glad they did at least. That Daredevil supposedly was supposed to do like episode 6 or something of the show.
He was supposed to do what?
Wasn't supposed to suit up until like episode 6 of like 8 of the show,
Yeah,
which I'm
okay.
like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
But so we at least got a little bit of Daredevil now. Yeah, it feels like episode 2 kind of thing where you can see that kind of buttoned up there, the thematic thing of, the court case being introduced, it ending in episode 2, kind of like a long movie or premiere sort of thing. I agree with you. Because we had Daredevil in the first episode and because we had the fifth stuff already out of the way, I was okay with slowing down, having a full court case episode. I'm a sucker for court case stuff. Some people, their mileage may vary on that, but I'm down for it. And I was okay. I mean, I was sad that I had to wait another week to watch another episode.
Yeah.
And the things that I will say plot wise, and I'll run off like 2 or 3, and then you can respond to them. One being, I thought it was kind of not very Matt Murdock Daredevil to out his identity,
I don't think
and it gets him killed.
Yeah, well, I think I want to return to that because I think that's very important. I think that was an obvious mistake he makes, but I think that's going to be part of the journey.
I
Anyway,
hope
we'll
so.
get back.
I
We'll get
mean,
back
yeah,
to it.
that absolutely has to be addressed. That like you
Well,
really,
let me just.
even the judge is like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
I'm just going to jump in on it
Yeah,
because I think we're talking about it now.
go for
I
it.
loved this actually. I loved for one the when Matt's talking to Hector about it. I just want to say like yes, this episode was slower, but Matt and Hector's performances were so good. It
The
didn't matter.
actor for Hector is great. Whoever
He
he
was
is,
so
he's
I
great.
was sad he's dead just because I liked him as an actor. I'm just
Yeah,
like
he's great.
we're gonna see him in more stuff. I think.
His like just
Um,
not saying anything, his face, I'm
yes.
like, dude, you're acting right now, but I'm
Yes,
doing
I
nothing.
know. Just this, like the eyebrow, like he just looks
Yeah,
concerned. He has like a perfect concerned dad look.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
remember like the beginning of the episode where he's talking about the frogs in Puerto Rico or whatever. The
Oh,
music that came
dude.
in, that was the like it was a great moment, and then they ruined it with this weird music, and that was the moment where I was like, "What is this going on?" But all that to say is, so going back to like what Matt does, right? So he outs him, but before he's doing that, he's talking to him about it, right? He's talking to him about like why we should potentially do this or whatever, and he's trying to convince him to do it, right? And he's kind of and to me there was also this motivation of like, yeah, if you do this you can't be the white tiger anymore, and it proves what I'm doing is right, because if I can get this guy to leave behind his vigilantism, and what is he says, we find other ways to help or something like that. He says to Hector
Yeah,
afterwards, and it's like this. To me, it's like yes, this is so evident of how Matt is perceiving himself. This is all about how Matt sees himself right now. This has nothing to do with Hector.
sure. You're
The
right.
fact that he reveals White Tiger is because he feels like Hector doesn't need that. He's kind of anti
Yeah,
person right now, and so
yeah.
it's like yes, I think he gets prideful, I think he's cocky, and he's only thinking about being like winning the case, period. He's not really thinking about Hector, and I think he will be forced to confront that when he hears what
Yeah,
happens.
and like you're saying, he wanted to win the case, but more importantly, would prove that he made the right decision. Yeah,
He made the right decision to give Daredevil up. And so
yeah.
to me, it was perfect because it's like,
I still think
yes,
it
it
may
was
have
a
been
mistake.
yeah.
But this,
It
this to
seemed a
me, we're not, we're not,
little
we're not getting
too.
Matt Murdock Daredevil. We're getting Matt Murdock doesn't like Daredevil right now. We're getting Matt Murdock and Daredevil aren't talking. This isn't like, to
Yeah,
me, that we're getting kind of a bit
but it's
of a
also
shell of Matt to a degree. He's not being himself. He's
but
putting on a
two
bit of
episodes
a
beforehand,
fake.
his best friend dies because the bad guy knows who his identity is. I mean,
Yeah.
it feels a little, whoa,
No,
Matt,
that
little
I
reckless
agree.
there, bro.
Now,
And
to
then
be
it's
fair,
like
that was like over a year ago. And I agree that
I don't think he
there
forgot that. I mean, so
no, I mean
which
I
is
agree
that's a
that
huge
your
reason why he
logic,
gave it up. Yeah,
and I hope somebody throws that in his face.
they
Honestly,
should. Karen should show back up and be
I
like,
think Cherry should do it. Honestly, I think his little PI guy is the perfect guy to just be like, what the
Cherry.
fuck were you thinking about right
I
now?
liked
Like,
him more this episode because he was doing something
he's
that I
so
thought was
good, man. I
cool.
love that actor.
Yeah,
He
I don't know
plays almost
Tyson
the
yet, but
exact same kind of character, just like a news reporter in The Wire, but he's just so good. There's something about him that feels so real, just in his delivery to me. But anyway, yeah, I love that Matt made a mistake. I love that, and it came out to me. It felt so realistic. This we're telling somebody else something, but really we're just trying to convince ourselves it's true. Like that happened. That's just like such a common human
sure.
phenomenon. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah, it's
we
just hard for me
rarely
to.
we are very rarely aware that we are doing it. We are
Yeah,
most likely fooling ourselves that we already believe this or we're already doing this. But in that moment, we're still trying to convince ourselves to do it or to keep believing it. And there was just such a great little moment in Matt's acting where he like said a line and then he like just did something with his lip, like his jaw and his lip, just for like a second, where you could just see he was trying to swallow that truth too, but he was having a hard time doing it. It was like it was a moment where he was like, I think it may have been the moment where he said, you get to find other ways to help, or you'll have to find other ways to, you'll find that you might find better ways to help by leaving that behind. And then there's just this like twitch in his jaw where you can just see he doesn't really quite believe, like he doesn't fully believe what he's saying. And I just thought, God, yes, that's good writing. That's good acting. That's
I
good
just
directing,
do wish
man.
I
I
was
love it.
expecting it. I agree with you. I was expecting it though. I think he'll be like, he said, after this you can't be White Tiger anymore, which is
Right,
the right thing to say. And
right.
I was expecting him to say like, you're going to have to move now.
Yeah, no,
Because I
yeah,
think that would have fixed it for me. Because it'd been like, because there's no conversation about that. And of course,
yeah,
you know, he suits up as White Tiger as we know he was going to, and then
yeah,
he gets killed, you know, because of
yeah,
it, because someone was waiting outside his house essentially.
yeah. Fake
And it's
Punisher.
like, yeah, I don't think it's actually
Yeah,
Punisher.
apparently there's behind the scene photos that already confirm it, but I'm not looking
Oh,
at them.
okay.
I've just heard about them in
I'm
comments.
assuming, you know,
Um,
I think he was originally supposed to be in this episode, but they changed it with reshoots, like actual John Bernthal. But I think, again, this is a more evidence to kind of build up that appearance where it's like people are
yeah,
taking his
yes,
symbol and you know,
yep.
massacring it, so to speak. But yeah, I think that if he had done that, then it would have been like that makes more sense to me. But it would have like balanced it out for me. But I think
I hear you.
because I mean it's a brazen thing to do, Matt.
Looking back on it, I think your point about how the reason Foggy died was because someone knew who Daredevil's friends were. That is the logic that should have stopped or made him say whatever he did. And so, but in the moment, it didn't register for me as weird. It
Yeah,
registered as he's in his own little world right now, trying to believe in kind of a make believe world that doesn't actually work the way he wants it to
yeah.
work. And so it makes sense to me that he do this. And maybe, like I said, maybe if they
I like
find a
the
way to bring
choice.
that back and just be like,
Well, they will.
why didn't you think about this? Why did you do this
Yeah,
and not do that? Like I like that Matt's making poor choices,
yeah. Once
and
again,
we're
if he had
getting to
said
see
that,
how that's
I think it would
building
have
in.
balanced it enough where he was still making a poor choice, but he was at least aware of like. I mean, that makes sense. Like he's not forgetting why this has happened in the first place, but also he's making a poor choice and he's hoping that this is the real reason. But he's like being. I mean, it makes sense to be
I
cautious
get
as
and
well.
maybe his logic is if I hadn't still been Daredevil at the time, that wouldn't have happened. Or if I'd given up Daredevil before that, that wouldn't have happened. Maybe that's somewhere to his logic is that like because I was still being Daredevil is the reason that was a danger. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a
We'll
fuck
see what
up. It's
happens.
either a fuck up with his logic or a fuck up with his decision making. I just like that he fucked up in a way. Like I'm enjoying
Sure.
the way that they're. I think the moment he truly becomes Daredevil again is going to be a really cathartic. Like
Yeah.
it's going to feel really
Or
good.
it would have been nice maybe to even see him like do it and fuck up, and then pretty soon after be like, like you know he because you can still make a bad decision and then know pretty soon
Doubt
afterwards
it.
like I might be doubt it. I might be
Yeah.
wrong, but I hope I'm
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it'd been nice to see that. I hope I'm not wrong.
Sure.
And you know, which obviously this is going to, you know, 100% going to tie into him becoming Daredevil again.
Yeah.
You know,
I
he's
mean,
like, this is who
it's
I
the
am. This
second. I mean,
isn't.
like to me, it's the first real spark that will like really begin him taking that journey to really be Daredevil again. It's like the moment that him as Charlie Cox, the lawyer, failed as a lawyer. So what else, if he's a bad lawyer, what else can he, like, there's just so many ways to work that into the motivation of wanting to like accepting that he's Daredevil again. And I think it's just, it goes back to like, it's just to me, smart storytelling, the way they're weaving all of these threads and themes together. The fact that, he's representing a vigilante and then they're doing this and Wilson Fisk is doing that. It just feels like, one of those shows where you're just watching wheels over here and here and here, and they're all going to just come together perfectly at the right time and just sync up, and it's going to be really satisfying. So I'm just enjoying the ride, and I think the amazing performances along the way are making it worth it too. But
There's also a version I can see this happening where in the next, I don't expect Daredevil next episode either.
no,
I can see Matt not blaming himself, but blaming Fisk.
sure,
Because it's like,
yeah,
because you did that written statement, this is why it's happened. And Fisk is like, and then someone like the Punisher or Fisk be
yeah,
like, you're blaming me, but it's your fault. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah,
Like, I can,
yeah,
then maybe that's more powerful. So I can
yeah.
see that. I don't think I think that's what's going to happen now because obviously he's on the record. So I
I'm
think Matt's
also,
going to blame Fisk before he blames himself first. Even
yeah, I
though he
mean that,
knows it's his fault. I think he's going to outwardly blame Fisk.
but avoidant, yeah, like not
Yeah.
accept that, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's totally possible. I do think, I'm very excited when John Bernthal does arrive and wreck shop all of these like
And they need it.
military head cops. You know what I mean? That are like
Yeah.
taking his like. There's gonna be such a nice meta like moment there, and I know that they're literally doing what the comics did. Like the meta moment happened in the comics that they're doing.
Yeah.
But it's just like that. I think that's the thing that I'm loving about this show is that like I'm enjoying it in the moment. I'm getting good performances. I'm getting strong writing. I'm getting interesting stories. But I'm also like watching the kettle boil at the same time, and I'm enjoying the gradual, like I'm enjoying that they're not rushing it. They're not rushing the kettle to boil. They're not trying to get things happen. Like we're just going to tell good stories, and in between, in the seams, we're going to be starting to build this bigger moment that will come up, later. I think, to me, that's just like, man, they got someone good at the top of this project. Whether it's the producer, the head writer, I don't know, but like someone that's like, to me, a storyteller first is calling the shots, and I think that's always that just locks me in even more,
I didn't know this until the episode aired, and I think I'd heard it once years ago, but I forgot about it. I was kind of reminded. But White Tiger dies in the comics also, and his daughter
Very
takes
similarly,
up
right? In
very
like a
similar.
similar situation.
Yeah, and his daughter takes up the mantle. And so
Well,
I
and I saw something too. It's like, he said he can't give it up. Apparently it's like a lineage thing. Like every male in his family has always been the White Tiger for like so many years.
Okay.
So it's more than
Interesting.
just like, I am this, it's my duty. It's like, no, this is who I was raised to be. This is who my father, my grand, like, and I think it would, and maybe maybe that will like come into play. Cause I think we're going to get Matt like visiting his family or something, probably like visiting
At least
his
his
wife
daughter,
and kid.
for sure.
You know what I mean? Like at the funeral, I totally see him like being a moment where he comes to the funeral and she like yells at him to leave or whatever. Like,
Yeah,
just
we
like,
get the Tony Stark,
yeah, yeah.
Sokovia mom moment where she
Yes.
slaps him. It's like, this is
Yes.
your fault.
Yes, absolutely. And he deserves it, right? He'll deserve that
He
moment.
does.
And so, but like, it'll also just be a great, moment to continue launching him in the direction. But yeah, I think on face value, I was like, White Tiger just feels like off-brand Power Ranger. I'm not sure what, I'm supposed to think about this guy. Hector was amazing. Like
Well,
Hector
the
is
suit
an
didn't
actor.
look cool. That's the problem.
No, it
The
didn't.
suit
It looked like off-brand
it,
Power Ranger.
it looked like She-Hulk side characters that we saw, and I'm like, just make them look cool,
Yeah,
make
yeah.
it go a long way.
And I guess I don't like it's. There's an element where it's like he's not a superhero with a big organization behind him. It's probably homemade. That's fine, whatever. But I do think it was like I'm not on surface like this character like White Tiger isn't doing anything for me. Hector acting his ass off every chance he gets. He just looks at me and he's acting his ass off. And so like, but I like having read some about the character, knowing a little more and what might come. It's like, okay, they're going to find a way to make this more interesting. And I bet the daughter's costume will look way better than his.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It's funny. We have like just literally 2 minutes left or 3
Sure.
minutes left. The title of this thumbnail is, and I wrote it I wrote it right after I saw the first movie. I said, "Is Marvel killing its franchise?" And it's funny because I wrote it. I made that thumbnail before Born Again had come out.
Sure.
But also, I mean, I feel like they really needed to win with Falcon, and I think we're getting a win with Born Again at the moment.
Yeah.
But is that enough to push? I don't know. Like it feels like
I'll
Marvel has been on a weird trajectory lately, and this
Yeah.
needs to finish strong. Thunderbolts needs to finish strong, and with decisions like the reshoots and not hiring people that know what they're doing, and or just not giving them the tools and resources and your time and attention to make them do good work.
Right.
They are killing their franchise at the moment. They're not out of the doghouse yet.
No, they're not. And I'll say this, like, me, I've not been up on Marvel for a while. Like it's been a while since I've been excited. We talked about this last week. And I think imagining myself right now not getting to watch Daredevil, like Daredevil doesn't exist, and then I just watched Captain America 4, I think I would be probably, calling the funeral homes already, right, for Marvel. Like that's where I would be. But I think I'm just realizing that like it's to me very telling about how much I'm loving Daredevil and how that's just kind of by proxy making me love Marvel more again, the MCU a little more again. That like, yeah, like to me that's even more of a sign that Daredevil's really kicking ass for me, at least right now. That like it can make me kind of easily just forget Cap 4. Yes, it wasn't great. Yes, there's so many areas it could have, but I might never watch it again. I might not think about it much more. You know what I mean? I'm willing, and I don't want to. I'd rather think about Thunderbolts. I'd rather think about Fantastic Four. But like, I just think, you know, if it wasn't something MCU that are just like, to me, firing at least on enough cylinders to make me just think about the show when I'm not watching it and think about the universe when I'm not watching it, that I think it's saving their ass right now, honestly.
Well, how can also write into us?
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly/241mail and let us know what you think of what is the title of this movie. It's not Cap 4, it's Captain America New World Order. Okay. Was it New World Order at one point?
That was the original title.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. At least I'm not okay. That just tells you how much of this movie I'm even going to remember. I don't even remember the title mostly.
Yeah.
bit.ly/241mail. You can let us know what you thought of Cap 4. You can let us know what you're thinking about Daredevil. We'd love to hear from you. bit.ly/241mail.
I liked the Hulk fight, actually. I thought it was longer than I thought it was going to be. And
The
I liked
Hulk?
it well. And the Red Hulk fight, I thought it
Oh,
was
yeah.
better than I thought it was going to be, you know?
it had the it had the best CGI. And I like the most cool moment where I was like, oh, that's cool, was the like wing slicey. Just because I think he's done that before, but just the way they shot it and did it with CGI just looked good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just like, oh,
that's cool.
I like when they do cool shit like that in superhero movies.
Yeah, that's half the reason we show up, I think. Next week will be fun. We'll talk about all of Invincible, season
finishing
3.
this week. You're right. Wow.
It's finishing this week. And then also we
Yep.
will be halfway through Daredevil. And of course, we'll be on the finish line Severance as well. Getting very close on that one, too.
Man, that last episode, so much to talk about. We'll have to save that, but like,
Yep.
there's a
We'll
lot.
talk about next week.
Have you watched it yet? Have you watched the
Yep.
one you missed? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And as you said in our text, it's the weakest episode
Of the whole show.
of the
period.
whole show. Yeah. And classic.
Slightly
let's
concerning.
stop-
Slightly concerning.
Yeah,
but
let's
I'm
stop
not giving up
everything
hope.
and not give much at all.
No.
Anyway, we can talk about that
Yeah,
next week.
yeah. We'll get you audience. Come back next week.
Yeah.
Let's talk Sev.
And if you can't find us at our bit.ly, you can find us on YouTube. Comments below, youtube.com/@241studios. What did you think about Cap 4? What did you think about Daredevil? We'll be back next week for a lot of other cool things to talk about. My name is Donovan Thompson,
I'm Daniel Wingfield.
and we have spoken.